It should be back, guys. Just refresh. I think I might have had an internet hiccup there. You missed your game. No. We held it for you. No, I figured you'd be here soon, so I decided to start with Astrobate. You were first, Jim. Alright. So d4, h6. Sorry, this is not the game. Knight e4, bad move. d4. Black's violating all sorts of opening principles here. And then Astrobate is clearly gunning for trapping the knight. But, I mean, I just don't think h4 is necessarily justified. Desert Lightning. Desert Lightning 04. I am the only. Yeah, the one and only. World Chess Network, now defunct. It's been defunct for a long time. I had some fun working for that site. Lots of good banter games with strong players. It was a good concept, but the management shit the proverbial bed in running the site. So it just kind of fell apart. It had really good backing. That was like 15 years ago. But I did get the chance to play with a lot of good players. Unfortunately, that is no longer there. h4, bishop e7. You took lessons there too. Wow, really, Bill? Wow, that's crazy. Mismanagement, I guess. I wasn't really like privy to the intimate company secrets or anything. I was kind of an outsider contractor. So h4, bishop e7. Black's very passive here. Bishop d3. He's not losing a piece after d5. I mean, that's the key. Astrobate, I think h4 is an interesting move and very creative. But objectively, you know, a little bit probably too much. Probably you should play this like classically, like bishop d3, maybe queen e2, try to win a pawn or something like that. Or just castle. But anyway, creative play. We might have internet problems. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I had another notification. There was like a very momentary disconnect from lichess, but maybe not from Twitch. Keep me informed if you notice anything. Yesterday there were storms in the area. My internet went out. Today again there's some storms around. It's very sensitive, telecommunications and whatnot in my area. So if there's like thunderstorms or large storms, I tend to oftentimes lose cable internet even. So anyway, Astrobate gets credit for creative play. h4, Black's going to lose a piece. No, bishop e7 is still okay. Bishop d3, now he's going to lose a piece. He just blundered. Okay, this is like crazy move. Just loses a piece. And the rest is, for any players here over 1500, obviously this is probably lights out. There's no compensation for the lost piece now. Purple Dragoons. Purple Dragoons. Any relation to Yellow Dragoon? Now it's just over. King g3. No. Okay, let's see what Astrobate did here. Check for the sake of checking, but it does inconvenience Black quite a bit. I think that's a good move. I don't mind rook f1. Get the king to safety. I think this is very reasonable. Then he takes with the knight. Now it's more stable to take with the pawn here, probably. Keep your pawns where they are. But anyways, it just looks like there's just nowhere near any compensation for a piece. He did play the move. Who asked this before the game? Who was that? I was joking if Asterbate plays bishop e3 in the first 15 moves, I was going to get angry with him and scold him because he has a habit of playing bishop e3 routinely in almost every setup that he plays. And he didn't make it to move 15 here. It was move 14 where he played bishop e3. Good morning, Vietnam. You're so close, but actually this is probably not a bad move here. Appropriate in this open position. But personally, Asterbate, I would have recaptured with the pawn on d4. Keep your pawn center. Juicebox Wizard is literally in Vietnam, I guess. He was in Cambodia. Are you relocating permanently to my thought on O.J. Simpson? Is there something new about O.J. Simpson that I didn't know about? Juicebox, are you relocated permanently to Vietnam now? Or just visiting? You're just Saigon for a trip. Rufus and Doofus hosting. Hell of an arm. I like his gloves. What can I say? Alright. Bishop takes d4. Bishop takes d4. I had very similar gloves. Queen c6. And it's just going to be that mate on g7. Really nice. Nice arrow there. This is just an appetizer, guys. F g7. Threatened. And Asterbate does not have a mate. Apparently you take with a rook and you can set up like queen d6 or something and mate in 5. I should turn the engine off. I just like leave it on. I don't really think about it, to be honest. There's no simul today. Luana Rada. It's just game analysis for my subscribers. Simuls on Sunday typically. Very rarely do I occasionally do a simul on a Wednesday. This looks good enough to me. So Asterbate, unfortunately your opponent played quite badly, but I think I can't really criticize your play at any point in this game, other than like minor stuff that you did wrong. So decent game, but I think the level opposition was kind of low. Not to take anything away from you, but I call it like it is. Alright, Asterbate, thanks for submitting. Jim is up next. I'm going to keep it moving along because I have a tendency to kind of go too slow in the first couple of games. Generally, I don't want to get bogged down. Jim, alright. I hope you're accepting bad games. No. You got scared to play the opposite move in move 21. Thanks. Alright, Budapest defense. Jim is black. Wow. Purple Dragoons submitted 5. I said this again. Why am I saying people are submitting bit donations? He donated 5 bits. Guys, special shout out to Dragon B or Dragon BC, who I don't know if he's here tonight, but he's been on the stream most times. He was here for the last stream on Tuesday, and he donated very generously to support the stream. So I want to thank you guys for doing that. Dragon BC is here. Yeah, no, thank you for the great donation, supporting this effort of mine. Dragon is on the list, actually. Save a Dog is next, then Dragon, Bisonov, Save a Dog, good 40%, and Arsenal. Alright, this is Jim. Did you play the Budapest defense regularly? D4, Knight of 6, Jim is black. Another 5 bits from Purple Dragoons. Dragoons. What are Dragoons, anyway? I didn't think there was more than one Dragoon. We know Yellow Dragoon. He's an FM now from Ireland. Comes to the stream sometimes. If you don't know what an FM is, it's international title. FIDE Master. So I just... Is Dragoon... Is it like some sort of... Is it some sort of real way of saying dragon? Like Dragoon? We have Dragoon BC. Oh, it's a military term. Alright. I never realized. I thought it was just something that... I thought it was just something Yellow Dragoon made up. Interesting. Alright, C4, E5. Now I'm curious. D takes E5, Knight G4. Uber Driver, one of our other subscribers, will occasionally play this. which I thought was always just bad. But it's actually not that bad. A class about infantry. Interesting. Bob. Otherwise known as cavalry. That's cool. I did not know that. We learn something new every day. This is a Fedorovich, right? No. No, it's Fajarowitz. Fedorowicz is an American grandmaster. Fajarowitz, I don't know the historical origin of the player Fajarowitz. Knight e4 is not as common. And now knight h3. Okay, this is an interesting move. Why have I seen this somewhere before? No games today, sadly. I'm just yeah, these are games. We're just analyzing. I do games. I play on Mondays. We have a tournament on Tuesdays. I play on Fridays as well. So you really caught us on the only day, yeah, really the only day when we don't play. It's a move suggested by Krennic. I'm trying to think where I saw this before originally. I'm gonna say it was in I think this was suggested by the late trainer from Belarusia. Please let me remember the name that I should know. Belarusian trainer who wrote a lot of great books, but I'm having a mental breakdown when I can't remember. Let's see. He wrote a classic endgame book called Endgame Strategy. Shereshevsky. Shereshevsky wrote a book called The Soviet Chess Conveyor. And in that book, he basically presented a lot of systems. This is like going back 20 years ago. In that book, he selected like a whole bunch of systems that he used with like his students to kind of like avoid like mainstream opening theory. And I think this was actually one of the suggestions that might have been mentioned in that book originally. Not a real mental breakdown, a memory breakdown. Yeah, not Fisher. One of the best endgame books ever written, in my opinion. Endgame Strategy by Shereshevsky. But I think Shereshevsky, why do I feel like, I know Dvoretsky passed away, but this is just like kind of coincidence. Why do I think Shereshevsky passed away? Maybe I'm making that up. Can somebody check like Wikipedia? Did that guy die? The trainer from Belarusia, Shereshevsky. Knight h3, okay. I mean, I don't see why you have to take the knight takes pawn right away. Now, for those of you that don't understand what the point of knight h3 is, the beginner looks at this and they're like, oh, okay, well, he's like protecting his f2, you know. But it's not really about that. Besides just being an offbeat move, kind of taking the opponent out of preparation. The main idea behind this move is to kind of control the d5 square with the knight coming into f4. So the d5 is a rather weak point, way less pressure down the half-open d file. And knight f4, knight h3, knight f4, a favorite idea of mine actually. I often play e4, knight h6 just for fun, attempting to play knight f5 quickly. My so-called 3 a.m. defense. This idea is just an offbeat way of executing control of d5. So anyway, let's see what happens. Knight takes e5. I wonder if you can play it any other way. You might be able to throw out bishop e4 check or something like that. I'm not sure if it really helps your position though. Well, the main thing is, Arsenal fan, like for the most part, you can't hold on to e5 without like making some kind of major concessions. Like almost most variations, eventually this pawn falls. White's advantage is more or less consistently the d5, having control of d5. Yeah, wow, look how many games there are. Wow, that's a lot of games. If you look at the opening explorer here. It's not really an incisive sort of like trying to refute the opening. Just white gains like a slight advantage. This move looks suspicious to me. I mean, we generally don't want to block this bishop in. So you could, though, follow up with g6. Well, whatever black's plan is, you have to keep in mind that you're going to have problems with the d5 square. If you were to play something like bishop e4 check, knight c3, I mean, I don't know, castles, how are we going to... Actually, not knight c3. Let's say bishop d2, okay? I was going to suggest queen e7, but then white plays knight f4. And that's, therein, as they say, lies the rub, or whatever. Like, here comes knight f4 to d5. And now we're going to feel very stupid for having played queen e7 and bishop b4. Purple Dragoon, I mean, queen f6, you mean like in which position? Knight takes e5 right away? Yeah, I mean, it's a similar problem. It looks like you're going to get worked by like knight d5. You'd have to play c6, which in that game happened as well. Yeah, I don't trust this move. It looks artificial, and the queen will probably get kicked around later on. Yeah. So let's see what he did, though. d6 is really not conventional. This is a very strange move now. I mean, g6 is totally standard. You have a choice between bishop e7 and bishop g7. I would agree with this player's choice to play g6. It basically looks like, hey, what's up, Mr. Coffee? Back in business. Queen going out too early, yeah. I'm going to come right back, guys. I think I just want to check something. Package. All right, we have a package. Who sent it? Better not be a mail bomb. All right, so g5. Wow, dude. That was played? Oh my god. All right, I'm not going to look at the next couple of moves. I would play g6 here, and I'm going to play a kind of King's Indian, essentially. White has the d5 square, but we can live with that. This is a very unconventional move. I mean, white could simply take the bishop and probably have a slight edge with the bishop pair, but maybe white should try for more. This is against Lance, who's a really good player. He's 2,500 here on lichess, and he's like kind of well trained. He has very systematic style, and just an all-around good player. b3, queen e7. This is a normal setup for white, I would say. Bishop e2 and castles queenside. So, see, the thing is, I mean, with the control of d5 and the ability of white to throw these pawns down, particularly b5, I think this is the less safe place for the black king to go to. Let's say, if you have a choice between castling kingside and castling queenside, your king is going to be clearly less safe on the queen side than it is on the king side. I mean, white's spatial advantage is on the queen side. This is white's spatial advantage right here. His control of that d5 square is so dominating. You're castling onto the side of the board where he has essentially a spatial advantage. So I think in that way it's going against, you know, classical principles. Your king, it's like a King's Indian, basically. You should castle kingside. I mean, how often do people castle queenside in the black side of the King's Indian defense? Like, never. This is a very unorthodox thing to do. It is seen in the Budapest Gambit occasionally, but I wouldn't like it here. Now white makes a mouse slip with king f1. I have played this move like occasionally in different kinds of positions, like to put my king on g2. But I'm, you know, I mean, fine, he could play h4, something weird if he wants to. I mean, this is just extremely strange. I think king f1 is extremely strange. There's really no reason to do that. Fancy, it's like fancy play syndrome. If you're talking, I played a lot of poker for like 15 years. And that's a commonly used phrase in the poker world. This is the equivalent of fancy play syndrome, king f1. There's just no reason to do that, you know. This is like kind of an arrogant, I'll be cool sort of move. H5. Totally speculative pawn sacrifice, looks like. Yeah, but he's got the classical control of D5. That's just good. So it was a mouse slip. All right. Knight D5, G5, and now Jim just goes for it. Did looks totally dubious. But you said it was a bad game, so we're not trying to... I want to stop trying to act like, you know, oh, this was the greatest game of Jim's life or something. Knight takes H5, and then F5. What's the time control? 5-0. Mouse slip over the board. Yeah, I mean, it happens. It's called a finger failure. And the worst I've ever seen is someone sitting down at the wrong board. It happens with senior citizens occasionally. And am I taking any more games today? Mr. Coffee, yeah, I think we have time for like 2 more. 4, 8. Yeah, we've got time for 2 more. From subscribers, of course. Mr. Coffee is our newest addition to the mod crew. We have Infinite Flash Chess who's here from time to time. But I've been without really a regular mod for a long time. And Mr. Coffee's often here. With my stream being based in USA. So he's going to be our mod while I'm in the USA. So Pi Day actually sent one in. Okay. So this is just speculative gambling play by black and a mouse slip by white. Now the knight is basically trapped. It's trapped itself. Virtually trapped. I mean, he does have knight back to H5. This move, you know, I'm not sure if it's necessary. I mean, I'm pretty concerned about Queen A4 at this point. A very standard attacking idea. Knight takes B4 wins a pawn, but white, listen, you don't want to take this pawn, you know. That's an offer you can refuse. The Godfather. Yeah, that's not a pawn you want to take. I mean, it could be just deadly. I think it's just deadly to try to open lines against yourself. Yeah, no, an offer you can't refuse. King B8 may or may not be necessary. A4. I prefer like the Queen A4, but I guess it's kind of a dead end now. Truthfully, like King B8, yeah, A4 might not be a bad move. 97. Bishop B2, and then Knight takes D5. I mean, you could have played that like in the previous move. You could have played Knight D5 long ago, right? No, that was Bishop D5, right? Never mind. Knight D5, alright. So you managed to play C6 now? Oh, I thought you were going to play C6. White is threatening F4. Well, we expect like Bishop G7 now, I guess, to break the threat of F4. I mean, I'm kind of like not sure about any of this. It looks like you have multiple moves. It might be possible to play like Bishop G7. It's even possible, right, to take with the pawn there, right? This is safer. So I'm just thinking C6, F4, and it's getting very complicated. Actually, he could retreat his knight, technically. Then we take this pawn, though. You know, that doesn't look right. So this is practically forced. I mean, what the heck is going on? Knight to G4, we're going to drop a piece, so we practically have to take, and then white would take. In this position, I don't know what's going on. Unfortunately, that E5 pawn will drop with check. So you can go Bishop G7. This actually doesn't look that bad. Okay, Arsenal pointing out F4 possibilities, but let's just keep it sane momentarily. Someone on sound likes to play with F4 too. Just saying, let me check with the engine here. Wow, this is like very good for black, apparently. Every single piece is mobilized. Pawn count no longer matters that much with the way king exposed on f1. You're still getting used to lichess. Yeah, it takes some getting used to. If you're not used to playing on a... I mean, I didn't used to play on a web browser-based site. So... even that took me a little while to get used to, too. If you're used to playing on a different site, it's completely different. Whatever site it is you're used to playing on, they're not all the same. I agree, too. It took me quite a while to adjust. But I don't really like bishop takes d5 here, giving up our bishop. I don't like this move. Why do we want to give this up? You can embarrass his knight with c6. All right. That's our variation. But bishop takes d5 here. Now white wants to cut his losses and play conservatively, like queen takes maybe. There's no way that Jim should trade queens. So after queen takes d5, you have a situation where you're down a pawn and you can't trade queens. So where do we go? Queen g6. He's actually threatening f4 as well. This could be a problem. I mean, how do we avoid trading queens and deal with the threat of f4? I guess we could sack an exchange with something like queen h7, f4, and then here. That just looks ridiculous. I don't know. This doesn't look good. Yeah, you've got a problem, dude. You got to trade queens. You just got to trade queens, and it's a nightmare. You're down a pawn. You don't want to trade queens when you're down pawns, especially facing the two bishops in a situation like this. Well, this sucks. So that's like a mistake, I think, by white on a practical level to take with the pawn. Because his king is unsafe, he really should try to trade queens. Plus he's up a pawn with the bishop pair. Big practical mistake. But Lance is an aggressive player. He's not ever playing for a draw. Kind of psycho-aggressive, I would call him. Very aggressive. Extremely aggressive. E takes f4, queen takes f4, queen d4. Anyway, he finds a way to try to trade queens, but this doesn't force a trade. And again, I think black's making a mistake. If you can play queen f5 here, it's like no-brainer. Look, the king is protecting b8. Jim, you should just play like queen f5. There's no question you should avoid the exchange of queens. Oh, you can just take the h-pawn. Oh, man. All right, I didn't even see that either. That's an even better way to avoid the exchange of queens. Oh, no. Yes. All right. This is a terrible move. And now black's just groveling for a draw. If bishop g4, knight g4, bishop g7, knight h2 check, that looks pretty bad. So he does it. And now Jim is just hopelessly down 2 pawns against a tough opponent. Well, as it appears. Down 2 pawns against a tough opponent. What is the description? LOL. Alright, man, h3 is kind of a weird move, dude. He's already created weaknesses by playing f3. Clearly his plan was to play king f2. But I think he should just play rook e1. I mean, this looks really good. I guess you have counterplay, huh? Some sort of rook here, rook here. You're going to do the one rook. Rook f5 or something like that. Winning the d5 pawn. White's still better, though. With these 3 connected passed pawns, white should be winning the game. h3 was kind of a weird move. Still probably good enough. Still good enough. I mean, 3 connected passed pawns just win for white. Yeah, I mean, he realized he can't protect the pawn. What's the best thing to do here for black? Start the pawns running? Rook a3 is a pretty good move, it appears. He tries to mobilize all of his pawns. Very logical. Like, at this point, yeah, I probably would just start pushing. I wouldn't even, like, defend the f3 pawn. The 3 connectors just win. You never really had enough counterplay. Is there something that I missed here? Yeah, I mean, I think that the golden rule, though, is once you're down a pawn, you're not trading queens. You do anything not to trade queens in that game. But that was a nice trap, rook h2. Okay, Jim, thank you for the bad game. You said it, not me. Cool to see play the Budapest, though. It's an interesting opening. Okay, we did the first two. Save a Dog is up next. Guys, thank you so much for supporting the stream. This week, Jim, Dragon BC, Merle Dixon, Never Odd or Even, Bill, Purple Dragons, and Asterbait all donated bits to the stream. Dragon BC also a generous donation via PayPal. You guys can also donate via PayPal. Someone on Sound recently made some donation with the Streamlabs streaming donations as well, also via PayPal. So if you click on the Panda GIF on Twitch, or just make a sort of basic donation via PayPal, much appreciated. All right, I got another message here. Pi Day. All right, that's in the list. We've got like 8 more games to go over. I'm streaming till approximately 8 o'clock Eastern time. No, I think it's interesting right out of the beginning of the game, Jim. When he plays knight h3, knight e5, e3, my inclination is to get the bad bishop outside the pawn chain with bishop e4 check. It turns out that Jim's move is actually the best scoring move. It's surprising to me. This move has the best statistical result of all the different moves here. 28% for black, 31% for white. I'm curious to see what the engine says. Yeah, it agrees. Stockfish agrees with d6, g6. It feels kind of automatic for me to play this move, though, to trade a set of pieces. Ivanchuk played this. I don't think that bishop b4 can be bad. But as I said earlier, I think the problem is that we can't play queen e7 like in a BOGO. Which means that you have to play like bishop takes d2 check, white takes with the queen, and then his knight comes and he has this really good duo of knights controlling the d5 square. So it may be that your move is the best. All right, let's move on. There's a game by Mitsis, who's actually a guy I know. The Latvian Grandmaster, he's one of the only people I've ever met who became a Grandmaster even though he started chess later than the age of 20. He told me he started when he was like 21. I couldn't believe him at first, but I think he's telling the truth. So if you are a late starter, it's inspirational to know that, like, you know, a world-class Grandmaster started later than the age of 20. This guy, Normans Mitsis from Latvia. All right. Anyway, let's get back to the next game. Save a Dog, otherwise known as HTFP. Over the board club game I played this Tuesday. I played with the black pieces. Inspirational to know that one person did it and was probably lying. That's the attitude, Bob. Don't trust anyone. Over the board club game I played this Tuesday. I said this. Okay, so here it is. We're going to copy and paste this. Tools, analysis board. purple pyramids are bits that have been donated to the streamer. Bits are Twitch's currency. Good explanation, Mr. Coffee. You're a pro. Purple Dragoons donated 10 more. A 10-bit pyramid. Mr. Coffee's awesome. Alright, so... You are white here, right? Reading comprehension. You play with the black pieces. Alright. Paste once again. I'm not good with the reading comprehension, guys. Sorry. Been a long day. I've been like cleaning out my house. Working on that every day. Kind of grueling. Brain is drained from all that physical labor. Alright. So you are black. C4. He plays C4 sometimes, so I wasn't sure. You just paid for 10 seconds of my electricity bill. Electricity bill went up double this month, because my wife and my kids are here. So I need some extra. C4, knight f6, knight c3, g6. Knight f3, and then bishop g7, and then d4, and now you play d5. It's funny, you could avoid the Grunfeld with the move e4. No AC. No AC. Man, I was dying last night. It was so humid. I couldn't sleep. Brutal. The Northeast, we shouldn't need AC, but it's climate change, Bob. By 2050, it's going to go up like 2.5 degrees or something. Celsius. Is that right? Or was it Fahrenheit? Now I can't remember. Okay, d4, d5, cd5, knight d5, e4. This is all theory. Take, c5. And now white played bishop b5 check. Am I raiding the Nevada desert? No, that's acerbate. It's pretty stubborn. Sweat your ass off 2 to 4 weeks out of the year. It's more like 4 rather than 2. It's not like Baltimore or something though. Yeah, I used to, when I was a kid, I used to go to the Jersey Shore in the summer, and not for reality shows, just for vacation. And if you go to the Mid-Atlantic, you know, Bob, you're from you're like in Virginia or something, or Carolinas. Sorry, I mean the Mid-Atlantic is like brutal. You know, if you're in like Jersey Shore down to like Baltimore, down to like Virginia, down to, you know, it's really hot. You could never live without some sort of air conditioning. Here we can just barely deal with it. The water's getting warm, so you might as well swim. Bishop b5 check. Anyway, guys, back to the focused point of the stream here. Game analysis. Bishop b5 check. I don't know much about this. It's not that commonly played. I always played rook b1. That's the main line. One of the main lines with knight f3 involved. It's usually rook b1. I will go back and show something here, though. If you were to play a different move order altogether, on a completely different note, this line, typically this is the most common move order, and white has a little more flexibility. This move has had quite a following for a long time. Bishop b5 check. It's like closely related, but not quite the same. I don't really know why. I think that people got bored of all the theory that already existed in the Grunfeld defense at one point, and they're like, all right, we're just going to play bishop b5 check because we want to find something new, you know. But just notice, again, I do believe in statistics. It is odd, you know, a little bit that bishop b5 check is 36% winning for white, which is the highest of any of the main moves. And the other interesting statistics is that black's winning statistics are kind of high there too, at 23. It's funny. It's more dynamic somehow after bishop b5 check. But I think that here it's a little different. Black has kind of less options. I mean, there's no c6. What do you guys think about this? Let's do a little question and answer. I mean, what do the viewers think about this position? I mean, what does this exchange mean for the game if there's an exchange of pieces, or should there be an exchange of pieces? What do you think about bishop e5 check? I think that somebody played this against me in a blitz game. I rarely play the Grunfeld, but it seems to me... I guess I'm confusing with a different opening. Warnaki, but in what, from whose perspective are you talking about? You just like giving up the light square bishop for who? You know, typically in this kind of situation, you have like all three options available: knight c6, bishop d7, or knight d7. And like bishop d7 is always the safer way to go, pretty much like across the board. Oddly, the statistics with knight c6 are like ridiculously drawish. Black is like 72, there's like 72% draws after knight to c6, which is... I would play bishop d7 because I feel like it's kind of, it seems correct, but the computer doesn't agree. I would think that trading pieces would actually be beneficial for black because black has less space. Trading pieces would be like the correct thing to do. There are some tricky players who go here. I don't know what that really changes. You know, the bishop's on d7 rather than c8, so b7 might be a weakness. It's an interesting idea. Knight d7 is like an aggressive style move. We're not going to trade pieces, man. Even if it means like we're blocking in our own bishop on c8 temporarily. Your bishop's on a stupid square too. So we're saying we're not going to compromise. We're not going to trade pieces. We can play a6 and b5 with tempo. I would say this is black's like concretely most aggressive way to play the position. But I would say like bishop d7 would seem like the right move. Knight c6, you know, visually it's strange because it looks like, oh, you're allowing d5. I mean, I didn't even calculate like bishop takes c3 check. That's possible. I guess I just anticipated a6, which apparently is okay. I didn't even look at this. So this is like a load of memorization. Apparently it's like every single game was a draw almost. White won like no games. That's good. That's good to know. Castles is the correct move. Apparently, okay, I've seen this. It's like take, 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 take. No. Weird. But they just take back here. Alright. Yeah, that makes sense. Castles. And now take. Or bishop e3. This is where there's like a ton of draws, it looks like. Bishop g4. Leiko's happy. He traded everything. I have seen this. Bishop takes c6, b takes c. Rook c1. It's an awful lot of simplification. Yeah, I mean, the c-pawn's weak, but white has weak pawns. Pressure on those guys as well. Queen a5. White has weaknesses as well. I mean, both sides have weaknesses. I would say, like, all four of those pawns. It's going to be, like, just a pawn collecting contest. Anyways, bishop e5 check shouldn't be a great move. I also would have played bishop d7 without knowing the theory. And now you've got to decide between knight takes and queen takes. For me, knight takes feels a little bit safer again. But I mean, I'm sure that Peter Swidler would say, like, okay, if knight e5, you're obviously, you know, you're just taking there and you've got a good endgame. We don't have to fear knight e5. So this move, I mean, could preserve the knight coming to a more active square on c6. That's the idea. Yeah. But I wouldn't want to trade pieces with white. I agree with you guys who said I don't want to trade the white square pieces. I don't want to do that. I want to keep all the pieces on. Already black traded one set of pieces, and then if he trades another set of pieces, there's not much left to attack him with. So I don't like this move. Apparently we've transposed back into theory. It's kind of scary that the highest rated game is Bonin versus Kamsky. Kamsky was way up there, 27-17. He had just come back from his chess hiatus. Well, I guess when this game was played, maybe not. I can't remember exactly when Gata, I should say, when Gata came back from his absence. Old Hungarian game here, Portish versus Hanfi. The brother of Portish, still alive. Both the Portishes still alive as far as I know. C takes d4, C takes d4, knight c6, bishop e3. Very logical play from both sides. I've heard of this guy, Semko Semkov. Bulgarian. So book says e6 and b6. Knight is more active on c6, HTFP. That's true. Not just the Grunfeld, but other openings as well. I mean, semi-Tarash. Anything with a structure like this. You always prefer the knight on c6. The Packy store. Okay, Asterbait. Buy me some beer. Rook fd8, e5. Yeah, I mean, white just butchers the position with the next move. Butcher. They call him the Butcher. He played e5. e5's ugly. It's just ugly. You don't want to fix your pawns on dark squares. Excuse me, the dark squares where the bishop is acerbate bishop on e3. Plus, black gets a really good blockading square on d5 when white plays e5 here. So this is just a positional mistake. You now have a great square on d5 to blockade. You can nibble at white's pawn structure with the break f6. You can see Semkov actually won a game with d5. But seriously, white went from better to worse in one move with the move e5. The wrong pawn to advance. I think ideally you don't want to move any pawn, but if with this move... There's like very little chance that white can lose now. You know, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, you know, f4 playing for an advantage. Or you could just be conservative with white here and make some sort of developing move like queen b3. But e5 is an atrocity from the strategic level. So now the question is, how do we set up our pieces? Do we play f6 at some point? First, like, firmly blockade the pawn. There was this joke I heard somewhere. I've said it on the stream before, but how does it go again? So Nimzovich said you should blockade the pawn. Alyakin said you should attack the pawn, and I think Larson said you should just take the pawn. The different ways of viewing, like, the, you know, they're talking about isolated pawns, but I mean this backward pawn is basically almost isolated, you know, essentially, because it can't be defended by other pawns. So what I'm saying is, what should black do here? Like, rook c8 and grab the c file? Should he start chipping away at the structure with f6? Can he reorganize the pieces in some way? Like maybe queen b7 and double the rooks on the d file? Queen e6 is what he tried. Again, f6, you know, the queen looks kind of exposed on e6. And this is a more normal square to go to. But ideally with like a rook or a knight. I know someone on sound is saying put the knight on d5. I don't see it happening unless you play f6 and white exchanges on f6 and then you can play knight e7 back to d5. That would be good. Realistically, I don't see that knight hitting d5. You might be able to play for knight c4. Kind of the next best thing here. Now I just realized that black has this move. Hello? That loses a piece. Alright. That's why that doesn't work. Never mind. So, knight a5, going for c4 possibly. Rook c8. You know, this is a tough position, I think, for you to decide on the best possible plan. f6 is also okay. Let's see what Stockfish says. The unbelievable suggestion of h6, which is just insane. There is, I just, honestly, you know, if somebody played that move against me on lichess, I would report them for being a computer right away. Because I don't think there's a grandmaster in the world, you know, who would play that move. It's just so counterintuitive to put a pawn in capture on h6. And, like, honestly, you're just trading the h-pawn for the d-pawn. But honestly, like, you know, best case scenario, let's see, knight d4, knight d4, queen d4. It's kind of like best case scenario, it's a draw. Black is a little better here, actually. Yeah, this is kind of nasty endgame. Lasker. But again, I don't think that too many human grandmasters would even consider h6. f6 is like very normal. You eliminate the strong pawn on e5, you take back with the pawn, and then you've got your knight d5, knight, you know, knight d7, knight d5, and just working on that isolated pawn on d4. White is a pleasant disadvantage. Yeah, what does h6 do? That's a good question. I think that's the greater question. What does it actually do? Nothing. You know, it really doesn't. I bet if you let Stockfish run for a long time, it would probably change its mind. No, I would never ever condone playing h6. I think it's a weakening of the Black King side, unnecessary weakening of the Black King side. Guys, thanks for joining my stream. Please support the stream. Jim has donated up to 1,000 bits this week. Dragon BC with generous donation this week. Warnaki, thanks everybody. Purple Dragoons. So Queen e6, gotta be careful with the positioning of that, you know, in light of like knight, you know, knight g5 and whatnot. It looks like a cheapo. I didn't say this, but it's kind of a cheapo. He's threatening to take the pawn. Good blockade here. You're gonna have to watch out for e6. This is very provocative. I would assume that white might seriously consider g4 now. Yeah, I think that's a risky move, but maybe justified by the situation. So I don't like it, but I can condone this because you can't get pushed around here. Wow, you have this tactic, nice. Wow, and that just wins a pawn because bishop takes, queen takes g5. You're going to get a little bit weird. Bishop d4, queen g5, f4. The queen would be forced to go to h4 or h6, kind of artificially. But white is very, very badly placed. This is the game. Yeah, now the black queen has to go to a terrible place, but the damage has been done. White's just overextended. Probably far more significant. Of course, there's always a chance our queen gets trapped. You know, you have to calculate this pretty far in order to justify playing this variation, I would say. Because you have to, at the same time, you have to consider playing some kind of like very sensible move like queen d7. I mean, at the end of the day, maybe you can win simply without any risk. And it's like this variation with knight d4 and queen g5. You could get into some kind of complicated scenario where your queen just doesn't get back in the game. If this were a blitz game, I'd probably just play it safe. If I had enough time to calculate, then I would work it all out and use a lot of time making sure that it's okay, you know. But anyways, so he takes f4 and now queen h6. What about queen h4? Is that worse? Is it better or worse than queen h6? To me, it's a little bit better because it looks like the queen, you know, could play e6. The queen could come back here. Bishop f2, queen h3. Maybe, yeah, maybe we're just getting our queen trapped. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, it's getting the queen trapped directly. Yeah, you lose a queen. Bishop f2. Well, not lose a queen. Okay, you'd have to go back to h6. Yeah, okay, so this is okay. Queen e4 here. You played e6, but you also need to consider moving the rook. I don't know if this one is better than the other. But e6 gives you queen h4, queen bouncing back as well. So that's something to consider. What's up, Infinite Flash Chess? Dueling moderators again. Infinite Flash, thanks for being a mod. True trapped. A true trapped. Can we play g5, or is that crazy? I see what you did. Nice move. This will really guarantee, great winning chances to trade. Nice job. Now you played rook d2 though. I mean, this move ought to be considered. Like, no nonsense. You didn't want him to play like bishop g3? Is that the idea? He could still do something crazy. Like what though? Kind of hard to come up with a suggestion. This looks like a good move. OMG. Alright, so it's time to go back to g7. Interesting battle. White was really cagey. Very, very tough defensive player you got there, opponent. Now you took on a2. Are you getting too greedy here? I would be very careful to consider bishop c5. But bishop h4 now, and all of a sudden you're the one? Is it? Man, I mean, this is looking like a kind of serious threat. Doubling on second rank? Well, I mean, h2 is protected, so you can double on second rank, you still won't have a threat. I'm very concerned that black is going to end up like losing. First of all, our back rank is weak with queen a8. If this were a blitz game, I mean, this move looks scary as hell. Bishop h4, there's this. This is attacked. There's queen a8 in a lot of scenarios. I'm not liking this for black. I don't care how many pawns are up on the queen side. If we're losing, it's not going to matter. This feels greedy to me, That's all I know. Like, trading rooks with rook d1 would probably be what I would do in a blitz game. Hey, I'm up a pawn. I get to trade a set of rooks. The less pieces on the board, the less chance I'm going to lose. That's all I know. Let's see what the computer says. It likes rook takes a2, the greedy method. The other move that actually makes sense is bishop c5. I just wasn't sure how we're going to meet bishop h4. Then we have no problem on the back rank, eh? So it's not really an issue, actually. Like this check, queen f8. I guess at the end of the day, there's nothing there. All right. So maybe you guys are overreacting to the queen a8 check, and the truth is like queen f8 will deal with everything. So that's why rook takes a2 is okay. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Arsenal fan, but there's no time, right? Our queen's getting trapped. Oh, man. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't do this. All right, I'm changing my vote back to bishop c5. I mean, at least there, we can play like this, rook d4 and just play queen f8. If you check and take my pawn, I mean, it looks like white is about to get killed. Queen c8 or something. I don't think he can even really defend. There's just so many threats. This looks promising. -8. A5. Right. No, I don't like this so much. Rook a2 seems greedy. This is very awkward to have to play queen h6. Maybe it's good enough, but it feels like a little scary. That's a cool move, though. The clapper. Clap on, clap off, clap on, clap off. The clapper. So there's like this. Three ways to attack H2. Discovery! Oh, it's a discovery. Oh no. Bishop E7. Rook H2 check. Whoops. Discovering the connection between H2 and H6. Yeah, that's horrible. Wow. No. What just happened? You just sacked an exchange. Is there any choice, though? Bishop E7 is not a threat, right? What is White's threat now? Queen A8 check? It's not really a threat. Does White have a threat in this position? F5 or something? I mean, generally speaking, I thought it was like F5 or something like that. Like long ago, actually. A million moves ago. I mean, couldn't you just play... You can't play Rook F2, though. Bishop E7. Arsenal fan with a suggestion, a sensible suggestion. A Bishop E7. There's one variation that concerns me, like what? This, and then this. The horror. The horror variation. And your next move is? This isn't a problem. Here, King G1. That's the only way that Black can possibly lose, right? Basically. So, nice try though. Alright, this isn't bad, but I have the feeling that all of a sudden White has legitimate chances to hang on. If we could trade queens, I'd be really down with this. Even then, there's no guarantee you're going to win. Like H5, let's say H5 or something. Can I do that? I feel like he just threw it away. The pawns are good, but that single rook is pretty dangerous. Black needs to find a different way to do this. I know there's something here. I mean, if nothing else, just like Queen F8, man. You know? Why don't we just play Queen F8? F5. We could only trade queens. It's still not that easy. I'm going to cheat and look what the computer says. Bishop F8. There's a move everybody would play. That's sick, dude. Warnacki's right about A5, though. A5! This move, like, nobody in the world would play. Man, that's tough. So you sacked the exchange kind of unnecessarily here. And now it's a mess. I mean, I still think that Black is probably better, but it's not at all clear. Between his threat to play F5 and potential back rank stuff, I think that White has practical chances. Right to the file. Yeah, I mean, suddenly it's no guarantee. I'm not so sure that black is winning here. Very difficult in game. He's got to defend. The pawns aren't going to queen themselves, and white will have some counterplay. Okay, like no losing chances, I guess. These pawns he's managed to put on the wrong color. That's a plus. But I think the problem is our king is like paralyzed, protecting those pawns on h7 and f7. So you need to be able to like queen your pawns without the help of your king. Which is next to impossible. His king can come over here and get in the center, and your king has to stay around babysitting. The engine actually says white is better. Oh, white has rook a1. Alright. But I'm still going to argue that I don't think this is winning for white. You know, I think the greater mistake was sacking the exchange in the first place, you know, objectively. It was like a tense position where you bailed out because, you know, I guess you saw a queen trade, but it's just a draw. You can lose now. But you shouldn't. Just a draw. Alright. Fair enough. There might even be some study like way white can attempt to win. I kind of doubt it, but it's not impossible. He could wheedle his way in here. You know, like on the white squares down to e8 and actually make progress. Anyway, guys, that was a super long analysis. Dragon B is up next. We've got an hour, 10 minutes left in the stream. Dragon B, Bisonov, Someone on Sound, Good 40%, Arsenal, and Pi Day. All right. Dragon B. You're playing white. Recently switch openings from d4 to e4. I'm getting a challenge. No challenges today, guys. 6 games with good analysis in 75 minutes. What we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, that's about right. I forgot somebody. No, I didn't. Okay. We got plenty of time. Yeah, I mean, I wish I could analyze. I would really, if I could, I would analyze every game for like an hour, objectively. So Dragon B is white. I wouldn't take as long. I get carried away with certain games sometimes. I don't know. A certain game just appeals to me, and I start spending too much time on it. And then I'm like, okay, you know, so it's never completely fair the way I do like one game. Sometimes I spend more time on one game, but I'm not trying to favor certain people. I just find more openings and more, you know, certain positions more interesting intrinsically. So Dragon B switched here to playing e4, and he has to face the Berlin defense. So my personal recommendation is to play Queen e2, only because people don't know this as well as other lines. I think it's objectively not even probably as good as d3. But in terms of practical suggestions, I think this move is a useful move. And most people under master level, even lower level masters, probably don't play really properly against Queen e2. If you're looking for something to avoid the Berlin, you know, and everyone knows d3, Queen e2 is kind of a good idea. Anyway, so castles d6. This is great. You know, black's now transposed from the Berlin to a Steinitz. That's good for you. Now you played rook e1, which is fine. I guess you can play d4 as well. As long as black can't play some sort of Mamadjarov g5, you're alright. So, quick story. You know, I think there's two ways to approach this. There's d4, which is like Lasker playing black against somebody in some famous game that I can't remember. And one of Lasker's most famous games, I guess, with black in this variation. But I think that c3 is like a more building up, a slower build up kind of classical type of variation. It's really a question of style here. There might be like more tension with c3. You know, you don't trade anything when you play c3. It's in a sense, it's like a little more aggressive. With d4, black will like give up the center and you'll trade a set of pawns in many variations, whereas c3 is more like not trading anything. I guess a stylistic question. They can attempt to play bishop e7 here. I don't know what the final word is on this variation. That's another version of Steinitz variation. e4, knight d4. So knight d4. We could transpose to Lasker game from 500 Master Games of Chess. I think it was Lasker. Bishop d7, queen d7, queen d4, bishop e7. I'm surprised we haven't transposed already. I feel like I've seen this game. So Capablanca might have played it with black as well. He, you know, I think with black he was a little similar to Lasker, kind of defensive, willing to play like a little bit of a passive defense, like the Queen's Gambit declined, Steinitz sort of Roy Lopez. But c4 looks like a mistake. I think it's not a mistake, but it's not the most, let's say, dynamic move here. I shouldn't say it's a mistake. I don't think it's necessarily the best move. Damljanovic has a game from 2009. I like knight c3. Just me. Less pawn moves, more piece moves. White's advantage is like infinitesimal here. It's a little bit similar to the first game we saw. White's control of d5. So it looks like Damljanovic played knight c3. And this transposes some other games. Every time you move pawns, it's like more real estate for you to have to take care of. And the thing is, Arsenal fan, in general, in the Marazzi, c4 is a good move. But here black's already traded off 2 pieces, and I don't think that the space advantage is that significant as it would be if like all the pieces were on the board. Alright, nevertheless, it's not a bad move. I mean, black might be able to play even b5 at some point to kind of chip away. But we'll see. This is an atrocity for black. Very, very typical mistake. Just attacking the queen for the sake of attacking it and creating like weaknesses along the file for himself. Okay. So queen d3, now you have a big advantage. Your advantage just grew. You know, I think this is a very serious mistake for black. Press C for incorrect. Queen d3 castle, knight c3, rook a d8. You know, this is not where you want to put your pieces, right? Like on dead files where they're just defending things. Nevertheless, it's still very hard for white to punish black and win the game. Bishop g5, I don't mind. I will caution you that sometimes that dark square bishop can be a supreme defender. So there's no guarantee that changing like bishop for knight and sticking a knight on d5 is like automatically winning. Obviously white is better, but maybe this is a mistake. You know, I'm not sure. Objectively, I will typically play like b3, bishop b2, and often go for like long diagonal stuff in this type of position. I like b3, bishop b2, maybe rook e3. We'll do like a rook lift over here, possibly. So when you play bishop g5, you're actually flirting with exchanging those pieces, which isn't really great for white. Kappa actually has a game with black where he did like h6 and knight h7 in a similar position, was able to like trade pieces in that way. Yeah, so this this is an interesting position, right? If you study 500 Master Games of Chess, or if you study, a better example is another book I talk about a lot, The Most Instructive Chess Games Ever Played by Chernev. There are several games in there where like it's just like the d5 square or whatever. But the thing is, in this position, I'm not sure how clear this is, because he can play like bishop f6, and that bishop could sit on d4. It could go to e5. You know, it could drop back and maybe passively defend d6. It's actually a very strong piece. So I'm not sure I really like this. And look how hemmed in it is on e7. I think that ultimately the best plan is, like I said, to go b3, bishop b2. Bring the rook across and look for rook lifts and like frontal attacks against the black king. Maybe we can combine ideas, basically. This constant pressure against the d-pawn with some kind of lineup against his king side. And meanwhile, we keep the black pieces really on the board in a cramped position, you know. So let's see what Stockfish says. Playing some quiet move. H3 is a useful waiting move, Karpovian. Bishop f4 is also a good move. b3 is also a good move. I think that bishop g5 isn't a bad move in itself. Computer actually looks at this, trading pieces straight up, trying to trade pieces right away. I think what you don't want to do is trade pieces, especially you don't want to trade bishop for bishop. Your bishop for knight exchange isn't that bad. White clearly is better, but this is a supreme defender, as I said. And if you don't win this game, I'm not that surprised. I would seriously consider playing knight d5 right now, you know, just dropping that pawn. Because I don't really want him to trade my bishop, my knight for the bishop. But it's like there's not enough compensation. Now you're probably slightly worse. Yeah, so this is really bad. It's a beautiful knight coming to d5, but he can just take it off next move. So you lost all your advantage. Most of your advantage, okay? Not rook b1, rook d1, and take with the queen. White has a small edge here. I would still take it, though. So you played rook b1. I would take this in a flash. Infinite flash. I don't want to see knight d5, man. That's not happening. That is gone, you know. Any good defensive player will take that. When he doesn't do this now, he's going, you know, maybe he's playing for a win, but, you know, objectively, it's dangerous. You know, he's playing for a win by going into a worse position. The bishop is strong, admittedly, but I think you can sidestep it. And once you get your stuff off the king out of that diagonal, you're going to be better. This is not a good place to go. I think you ought to stay away from the center. So I would play king h1 if I could. I drop the f pawn. You can play king h2 because of bishop takes f2, g3, winning a piece. That's a little tough to calculate in advance, you know, to see that idea. But if not, then go rook f1, you know, and then move the king, and then you're all set. Black is slightly worse. I think king f1 is kind of weird. Maybe Infinite Flash disagrees with me. It's not that bad, though. You know, actually, I would like a knight versus bishop endgame, maybe. If I could trade queens. It does defend e2. f5 just freaked out. I don't think it's that bad. I really thought it was like you. I thought it was really bad at first, but I'm warming up to it. But black just went nuts, so I guess black should play something like a6 and dream of playing maybe b5 somehow with rook b8 and b5. He just has to float like a butterfly and sting like a bee here with black, like Muhammad Ali. Just hang out and see what he can do. You know, he doesn't have any active counterplay, but hang out and make the opportunity happen. Severe time pressure. We're under severe time pressure, guys. Uh-oh. I didn't know that. All right. So f5, e takes f5, rook e2, queen e2, and they were just like, yeah, he's just down a pawn. That seems unnecessary. I don't want to lose this, but it's protected. Okay, at b4. b4 is a little risky. I don't know. I would just play b3 probably. Now it's over. I mean, we know that already. But I don't know. I'm having some weird hallucination. Yeah, it's hopeless. Good game, man. Dragon, good game. So, alright. Bisonov. I can't even read my own writing anymore. It looks like Snapchat. Somewhat. Alright. I thought it said Snapchat. Not sure exactly what type of game. He gave me two options. First game was game in 90. Interested to hear alternatives to White's 11th move, which I knew was suspicious. And the second one is what? Oh, Tim Wall. I've heard of him. Tim Wall, maybe I did. There's also a Bill Wall. Maybe I did some commentary with Tim Wall once. I think it was a different Wall, though. Too many walls to keep track of. Let's take a look at the first game. I hope I can enter this. Cool. Bill, thanks for the donation. Please provide an actual line with the numbers and moves. That's like when you go to a tournament, you're like a master, and then people who are 1100 that don't understand how to communicate really with other chess players, the very beginners, they'll come up to you and they'll say, my knight was on g5 and my rook was on h3 and this, and it's like, what? We don't know how to understand. Like, we're not like all seeing like people, you know. I mean, I'm just like you. I don't understand the position. I mean, you can't just expect people to just know your position. All right. e4, c5, knight c3, close Sicilian. a6 has been trendy for 10 or 15 years. f4, b5, knight f3, bishop b7. This is normal. This is recommended by Richard Palliser in his very good book on beating the anti-Sicilians. I forget the exact title, if that was it. It's a 10-year-old book, maybe more now. Circa 2007, 2008. But I don't think that much changes in the closed Sicilian in a period of 5 to 10 years, like in open openings. G3 is recommended at some point, but you can't do it right away because your e4 pawn will fall to b4. To be perfectly frank, though, I'm shocked looking at the opening score that no one's played g3 right here, because honestly, like, how does it work? Yeah, it's a problem. Palliser looks at some line where the e4 pawn is sacrificed. But the problem is you're going to lose this anyway. Horvath Chaba actually has a game here where he won with black and the guy gave him this pawn. I mean, I know Chaba, he's a good player. This is crazy for white to just sacrifice a pawn for nothing. Okay, so d3. So far, standard. I don't really know what black should do here. As you can see, like, the majority of people play d5. I have only played this for black in online casual games. But it seems like knight f6, bishop e7, any of the above should be reasonable moves for black. Now, basically the idea is white in any sort of close Sicilian is going to play f4, f5 style plans. And a long time ago I learned that basically the hedgehog type of setup, something like what black has here, isn't very effective against the King's Indian attack. And this is sort of similar to a King's Indian attack for white, except his pawn has gone from f2 to f4 already, which is almost like an accelerated King's Indian attack. So the King's Indian attack is really just a kind of closed Sicilian if you think about it. So white has this clear plan of f4, f5, right? But what does black have? You know, that's the way I feel when I'm playing black in these kind of positions. So I think that's why, at the end of the day, like, this variation is better. It does more to kind of disturb white. I mean, I would think that white should probably play e5 here. This follows the Strong Women's Game from Elizabeth Pates against Ushanina. Anna, who's a good friend of mine. This might have been like the candidates match for the Women's World Championship. So it could have been anywhere actually, but she did become Women's World Champion briefly. I would think that, you know, you can also try stuff like Queen e2, maintaining the tension. But I'm not a huge fan of the closed Sicilian for either side. I actually find these positions very hard to play. Black played instead bishop e7, bishop g2, knight c6. And this is a typical quandary for black as well. You know, do you really want your knight blocking your bishop on b7? This proverbial problem. So, I don't know. Sundberg has a game here in 2001 where he played this with black. That's a good reference point, at least. Unfortunately, I feel like not enough strong players play the close Sicilian with white, so oftentimes the statistics are like skewed in black's favor. Not because the close Sicilian is better for black, just because like it seems like not that many high-rated players play it for white. So h5 I have seen in similar positions. I've played similar ideas in the hedgehog. But again, I don't really know about this knight on c6 blocking the bishop on b7. It's an interesting idea. Very speculative. Now h3. I know that Palliser did recommend the idea of h6, h5, excuse me, in similar positions. But I think that it was most frequently seen when white had closed the center, like with d5, e5. After like d5, e5, h5 would be a really normal move. But here it's not quite as normal because we haven't locked the center. Knight h6, queen e2. I'm not sure about queen e2 given the knight coming in, but it is a kind of typical square. What about just like bishop e3? f5 here with the idea of h4. Are you crazy? Sorry? f5? That's nuts, man. I could see like f5 maybe if white hadn't, I mean, if black hadn't played h5, but h5 and f5? I don't think you can play f5 at any point anymore. Maybe like here, you mean here? Like, I don't know. Like, no, I don't think f5 is going to fly. That bird doesn't fly. Castles here, e5. So g6 is kind of weird to begin with, but he's afraid of f5. Like, speaking of f5, white might really have f5 at some point. Like, that might be a real threat. As a positional pawn sacrifice. I think that's what he's terrified of. You might be able to play it here, but now GF. Yeah, I think the black did a good job discouraging it. And then, well, I think the white should just find a way to, it's not so easy, but find a way to just calmly develop. Easier said than done. Okay, e4. This is obviously coming in now. So we got a problem here and a problem here. Timing is everything, you know, but this looks okay. Knight e4. Very reasonable to me. I don't know. Now black is actually fundamentally more of a question. You know, what's his king doing? White's king is settled. Black's king not so much. Is this a threat? Doesn't black have bishop takes? Then the knight gets trapped on... What's happening here? You have queen e1. Queen e1. Some sort of double threat, like bishop e4, d e4. Is this what it's about? Flight problem. Filet o fish. Alright, that's cool. Resource. Black prevented that, threatening bishop e4. And then this. Looks like a good game. Very good game thus far, you know. And now he's given up c4, so you might even think about a second knight. Little transfer. Knight f d2. Yeah, I don't like this move. I can understand he's playing bishop a6 maybe, but I'd like to get a little more aggressive here if we can. You also have g4. Like, g4 could really happen at one point later. Maybe not yet, but eventually. This is okay. This isn't as good as I thought for black, right? No, I'm not real comfortable with this for black. g4 is a little early. I think I would have preferred to prepare it with something like queen e1. Like really, then it's going to be hard to keep that protected. I feel like white should just wait and play like this and pop the knight in on c4. You could play on either side. White's definitely better now. Too many holes. The c4. I thought he would play knight h4, but I guess you just take with the bishop and he's dead. Yeah, this is nice, because if like take, and the bishop is trapped, that's like a classic advance. Yeah, that's horrible. Black's just lost, sorry. There's like 96 check and stuff. Alright. So he can't even go there. Yeah, g4 is really strong. And he does get, yeah, this is a nice game by white. This is like, g4 is protected, c4 is coming. Knight d8's not happy. But you know, the closed Sicilian is so hard to play. And this is just sheer desperation. Totally unsound. What's this? Goodbye. That's like the America Online sound. Goodbye. No. There's not enough compensation for a piece here. You've got mail. You've got hate mail. Every time I see my mailbox is full, I'm waiting for the hate mail. What's up, guys? So this was a nice game by you, though. I like it. I liked it. Yeah, I thought you played well. Peace up. Peace out. This is just over. Clearly over. Nice finish, though. The questions remain. I think it's hard to play these lines for black. Palliser recommended as an alternative to the classical double fianchetto. I mean, like white fianchetto, black fianchetto in the closed Sicilian. But in my experience, playing these lines with e6 and a6 in the closed Sicilian do lend themselves to white getting kind of kingside threats, very serious kingside threats, and I don't think that they're easy to handle. All right, on to the next game. We've got 45 minutes left. Save a Dog, 40%, Arsenal, and Pi Day. So someone is up next. Whoa, my God, it's Robert Hubner. The first page of Robert Hubner's analysis. Damn, dude. All right, Bob, have him reprimanded for form of submission. Wait, what happened? Okay, game for tonight. If you have time, this game would be interesting for me to look at. I don't know enough about the right way to play some of these other systems. So the secret to beating someone unsound is the Philidor defense. Thank you guys for supporting the stream. Dragon BC, Jim, Bill, Warnaki as well. Merle Dixon, never odd or even. We didn't get a submission from Merle Dixon. Is he not here tonight? We're missing him and Uber Driver. I mean, they're not here in their one body. I think it's getting around that you play the Smith more and you like it. So everyone's playing e4, e5 now. Or e4, d6. Good idea. This is a good anti somewhat unsound system to backdoor your way into e4, e5, essentially. I think this is like probably the best move now. e5, the anti somewhat unsound. How can you turn it into a gambit? What are you gonna do? Knight f3. You probably have something against Fildor. Let's see. Knight f6, knight c3, knight on bd7. So the one thing about this funky move order here, somewhat unsound, is that white can play f4. I don't know much or anything about this. And I have played it in Blitz, but that's all I know is just intuition. It seems like the logical way to take advantage of this. f4, e5, and then knight f3. It's basically a pribble or check defense where the queen hasn't come out to a5 early. But I really don't know. I mean, this also can be a kind of exchange variation. Let's look for Mamajarov games. There's no Mamajarov games. Strange. Yeah, it's like a weird Philidor exchange where the knights come to d4, I'm sorry, d7, but white's played f4 early. No, this needs to be, you know, looked at. But that's something to think about if you want an aggressive approach. But how often is this going to happen to you, you know? I mean, most people will play the normal Philidor move order. Knight f3, e5. Anyway, you need to be prepared for this. So let's just do it. Someone unsound, you seriously played d5 here? Wow. You literally played d5. That's not even on the list. I can't believe you played that. This guy who plays the Smith Mora played d5. Hey, let's close it up. I would think, okay, there's no pawn to take on c3. It's not a novelty, I assure you, but not a normal idea. I will say one thing in someone unsound's defense. Playing against him a number of games now with black, he has a really good feel for space advantage. I felt playing the black side of some kind of unorthodox systems against him. He definitely has a good feel for the space advantage. So although d5 I think is a strange move, probably a bad move objectively, you know, I could see how he could handle this, probably handle this well. Shirov, g4. My God. It's just one random game from Poland in 2005. That's amazing. I'm sure that if we look in ChessBase, there's lots of games from the New Zealand Under-3 Championship. D5 here, G6. Yeah, G6 is good. Basically, someone sounds now stuck in a closed position. He's a gambit player who's forced to play a closed position. You have space, man. Maybe bishop c4 or something like that. It's ugly. I would definitely look to castle queenside, possibly. This move you have to obviously be aware of knight g4 as an idea. And I would think that black could play it right away. But how does he follow up? That's the question. Like bishop d2, okay. What are we doing now? There's no real f5 because that's too weakening. I guess it's almost like a temptation. All right, here. Yeah, he's gonna go queenside, but now this is a legitimate move, dude. He didn't play it. I like black after knight g4. I don't understand this. This isn't good. You need to play h3. If you want to do this, you probably need to play h3. At this point. You can't just give up your dark square bishop. But he missed the boat. Okay, bishop g5. And now presumably f6. Is this the idea? h3? Can we really do this? Huh. Maybe someone on sound had calculated all this in advance. A lot of pawns on dark squares. It doesn't look overtly healthy for black. On the other hand, this pawn on g4 is kind of tender. Let's see what the oracle says. Wow. Very close. h6 with another pawn. It's the pawn bonanza. That's a lot of dark square pawns. Surprisingly not that bad for black. Now someone in sound has to turn into like Iron Tigran Petrosian with knight h2 and knight f1. It's a Petrosian King's Indian. So I don't like this man. He missed knight g4 though. Huge blunder. And now you should probably play h3. In the event of knight c5, you have good moves. Takes or bishop d3 even. I kind of like white after h3. I don't know why, but this is bad. Again, knight g4. Bishop g5. I mean, here though, it's like a King's Indian kind of. Maybe not that bad. Because you can come to h4 now, and you haven't castled yet. Well, it's like he's playing like d4. You know, essentially, he's an e4 player who's now playing the white side of some sort of King's Indian-like position. And he has no clue, you know, what to do here, because he's just not used to it. But bishop h4 is actually okay. Because you're not castled, you know, this pawn ruler doesn't do anything. It just weakens black's position, I think. Most likely. It looks like a good Grigorich King's Indian. But you play bishop e3. You don't want to give that up, that piece. Even though black's bishop is bad, it can reappear out on h6. So major decision here. Take with the queen or the pawn. I think the queen takes prevents bishop h6, which is my #1 reason for doing it. But black is playing f5 anyway. Both of them look kind of scary for white. Alright, I'm going to turn off the engine so it doesn't bias my analysis. But clearly f5 is much more scary for white. Challenging the center, giving the bishop a new square, giving the knight f6 a square. a5 is a normal-ish move, but it doesn't seem appropriate. Not yet. He doesn't need to play that yet. He's guarding this outpost square. Yeah, a5. And a4 was very reactionary. I don't think it's necessary to play a4 here. You might even consider h4, dude, just going totally nuts. To give yourself knight g5. And your king will just hang out. How about h4? It's like one of the best moves. It's literally one of the best moves. All right. Here, I don't like a4. Someone on sound playing the white side with King's Indian. That's good for black. And now you're just in a nightmare scenario. My God. He's playing like an 80s computer. Someone on sound is like a 1982 computer. Here I have something for you guys. I found in my stuff. Going through the house today. This is, do you see this? It's like a little Novag. It's a Novag Solo. You can buy it. I'll sell it on eBay. It's like a little computer. Looks like a calculator. Circa like 1984. It has like an analysis set. You just like use the pocket analysis set. I used to play this thing. It was probably rated like around like 1800 or something. I don't know. It had different levels and stuff. That's what someone on sound is playing like in this game. An early to mid 80s computer that just doesn't really know what it's doing in closed King's Indians with white. But f4, I should see if it might still work. I haven't tried it. I wonder if not turning it on in 20 years, you know, would be good for it. Man, the queen is almost trapped. It smells like... has a weird leather smell. Okay. G5. Man, if he gets out with a white square bishop exchange, white could be better now. This is scary. And this is the threat. No, sometimes F3 will just kill you. But if he can engineer an exchange of bishops with bishop G4, that's what happens next. Oh man, the whole game shifts now. This is how Korchnoi basically beat people with white in the King's Indian. He was famous for like just taking over the white squares on the King's Indian and then like on the king side and actually like checkmating black. I won a really nice game in the New York Open once against Boris Kryman where I was white. We win every game where we're white. But bishop e8 here. So he plays c6, allowing the light square bishops to go off. Yeah, I mean, I probably like this exchange. Knight c4 is interesting. But I guess we have to watch for the protection of e4. Anyway, guys, let's move on because we're running out of time. He takes here. I don't think it's necessary. Yeah, I think I wouldn't delay that capture on d7 too much. And then a strange mistake. I mean, it looked like you were really focused on d6. I mean, clearly he has rook f6. He can protect. If knight c4, rook f6. That's the idea. But white can triple. And the queen isn't getting trapped. You always have to go back to e2. I can understand why you exchanged on c6. I mean, I know that you're opening up pressure on the d6 pawn. I did mention the bad bishop earlier, and it's going to be a factor here. Black makes it worse now. Okay, knight f3, h6. That bishop from hell. Good night, bad bishop. And black probably has some sort of miraculous d5 and e4, something like that. In there. And d5. I mean, I think I would have usually gone here in most cases. It looks like this is still a problem. Perhaps not, though. We have d5, takes, knight takes d5. Yeah, queen c4, queen f7. Black is winning. So we go back to this point. Your plan is too slow, and you need to keep control of d5. Plus, you practically you almost trapped your own queen. Man, that's tough. Luckily, it's not really trapped, but the d5 gives black the advantage. Yeah, so it's totally out of control now. Like, the position fully out of control. Black has this massive armada of pawns. He's better. White just lost control of the center. Now it's just a complete positional advantage to black. Plus tactical traps. It kind of looks like black's lost his focus, though, with this move. Okay, he's got... what's he going to do? d4? Should be focusing on, like, somehow maybe playing e4, e3, I think. I feel like he's going the wrong way with rook c8, almost. I'm not sure about trading queens, either. Black's still better. Now e4 just like wins. I mean, almost wins by force. I would not e4, not d4, but e4. This is just enormously strong. I can't imagine how this is going to be too easy to defend against for white. Very difficult. Okay, it's understandable the g4 as well. Just general expansion. Oh man, so he's giving up the white squares? Even if you... Wait, why do you have to take? If you take on g3 check, e takes, what's the problem? Is it that bad? I mean, f takes? Interesting. I don't like my king here. You know? Someone on sound? Alright guys, we gotta finish this up. We got time for 3 quick games after this. The king is like trapped, though. On g1. I don't like it. I don't know. I just don't like this king going to g1. I would prefer to play this. If there's a problem with knight getting into f4. Oh, you're worried about the open h file. Wow. I didn't really consider that. I was mainly concerned about a knight getting into like f4 in one way. It would come here, right? So I would be, I don't know if you remember the game that well now, someone on sound, but you might have been concerned about this as well, I suppose. I mean, I guess that's worthy of consideration. You know, it's not easy. I still feel like black has a lot of threats. This makes me uneasy to play king g1. Even despite the bad bishop, he's still super active. This is a great thing, though. Knight in e4. Nah, he just trades into this endgame. So this pawn... I mean, bishop f8. He's going to drop this pawn with knight here, knight h4. You've got, black's got knight d4, knight takes b3. I mean, I'm not sure black's worse because black's got that nasty, you know, constant threat of like knight takes f3 or something. If you try to go away, you know, from the king side, there'll always be some sort of knight here, knight takes f3. You would think that black would be worse, but it almost feels like black's not worse because you can't really get active with your king. And if you take the pawn on h4, like you'll lose the pawn on b3, something like that. I would feel like here would be safer. It's another active bad bishop, kind of like the other game we saw earlier in the stream, where Dragon B played bishop g5 takes f6. It's another case of the active bad bishop. Easy to underestimate, because I've done it a lot. You know, I know from experience losing positions where I thought, oh, he's got a bad bishop. It's actually quite tricky. So you lost this pawn, but you get the e5 pawn. If you lose the a pawn, you could lose. This is getting sharp now. Stopping knight g6. Yeah, trading pieces here, though. To go into a straight up, black should never go into straight up knight versus bad bishop position now. Only losing chances. It's trickier with the knights. He has this move, holding, I guess, keeping the force field in place. He can defend d3 from d3, defend f4 from d3, and then bounce over here to attack the a pawn. If you lose the a pawn, you could lose. I guess that's why the computer says it's equal, but this is crazy. This is crazy now. I don't know. I mean, despite his having more space, it doesn't matter. Yeah, he's doing nothing over there. I don't know what this check is about. You can't do anything over there either. King c4. You just penetrate with your king. This is good. Now it's over. Alright, man, crazy game. But clearly, you know, you need to get more familiar with playing like closed positions with a sort of situation like the King's Indian. But d5 is a strange move to play for you. I don't know why you would voluntarily choose to play that. You must have faced the Philidor before. It's very strange. Alright, but I don't think that black should have lost that endgame, objectively. Don't blame me in the game I sent you. My opponent forced the London. Alright, so that's the next game. We got 3 last games, guys, and 25 minutes to do it. So let's go. Alright, next game, Wasero. Thursday analysis. Here's a game I wanted to look on. This is... Your opponent played the London, so you're black. The opponent forced the London. If I know my opponent's going to play the London, like I would probably start playing like against bishop f4 right away with something like d6 or knight c6. I like to be provocative. If I know white's going to go here no matter what, I'll actually like try to purposefully counter it, you know, with d6. I mean, there's all the normal lines, knight f6 and g6 and e6 and c5 and all that, but especially if my opponent is an amateur, like below 2000, I would go out of my way to try to play against the London, you know, by doing annoying stuff like d6 and e5. Try to disturb them a little bit. But anyway, so it's d4, d5, knight f3. It's funny because most people play bishop f4 nowadays on move 2. That's very popular. The McKenna's, I would play that, like, not against the master probably in a tournament game, but I would be willing to play d4 knight c6, you know, against anybody pretty much under 2200. I like e4 knight c6, and I have played it in tournament games. And again, I've played e4 knight c6 the Nimzovich against people, anyone up to about 2300, and felt like I could do that. But the other one, d4 knight f6, we call it the Mexican defense. It's weird, you know. I haven't played it in a tournament game, but I would gamble with that, especially if I thought my opponent liked the London system exclusively. So knight f3, knight f6, bishop f4, and I mean, I like g6 here, and I like c5. That's what I play, you know, and those are the safest moves. Notice that c5 and g6. Okay, some people have played knight h5. I mean, that's like crazy. This is crazy, and this isn't real. I don't think this is real here. You know, I don't know. That's kind of absurd. Belyavsky lost with it. Wow, to a 2400. Okay, so bishop f5. This is very solid Slav type setup. Well, he played c4. That's critical. He's supposed to do that, and a lot of people don't. Wasera, we did have a famous game on the stream where we called it the Mexican Wall game. One of our subscribers, I don't think he's here tonight. I made this allusion in the joke during the stream, actually. I think some Spectacular Camel is the name of the subscriber. He would remember that game, actually. Bishop d6. It's an unusual move. I think typically you see like c6. Kamsky Sarawan, U.S. Championship 2006, probably. I don't know if it's better to do like c6 first or e6. I don't play this for black. Apparently the theory is bishop takes b1. I've seen this. The idea is that you allow a check on b4 and like move your king or something. There's this. Magnus played this king d1. I don't know if you guys know this variation. I don't really know it for either side. I've just seen it. It does look promising for white. White has the bishop pair. And the king is surprisingly difficult to attack because black doesn't have a white square bishop. basically he plays bishop d3 and goes back to e2 and then walks the king back manually to f1 on the magical white square path. Carlsen's so multiple games in this line. But bishop d6 looks like a playable move. I've never seen this. Perhaps it's not bad. If c takes, we have quite a bad structure. But, I mean, you can consider some moves like this. I don't think it's that bad. I had a similar line in the Dutch once with white where my opponent took back with a pawn. This is a favorite of the old master Carl Schlechter. Schlechter loved to have like double central pawns in any kind of structure, in almost any sort of scenario. I think this move is a move you should always consider as a viable option. I don't really love this, where we get like the double isolated pawns here. But I'm surprised, you know, I wouldn't be surprised, I mean, if black could just take with a knight and everything's okay. So, CD is playable. Queen D. And then white grabs space. I guess it's reasonable. I don't really like locking it up with c5. I prefer to keep the tension universally in most cases, but it reminds me a little bit of like the first World Championship match between like, was it Zukertort and Steinitz. Zukertort had this sort of fascination with playing c5 too early, and ended up, there was some crazy games in that match where really ridiculous things happened, but Zukertort would do like move 6, c5, and the Queen's Gambit. It's justified here though. It is inflexible, but it's justified. It's space. We have kicking the queen, where we're coming out with like queen b3. So I think it's a matter of taste though. Like a lot of people might prefer to play knight c3. It's interesting. Danny Gormley, Van Bailey, Andreykin all played this, but it's by a transposition. That move was actually already in, so this position has only happened twice, it looks like. Maybe these guys, those strong grandmasters, would have played c5 as well. I'm not sure. Here, here, here. Lukács played there. So queen b3. Lukács did a funny thing. He was playing a friend of mine, and in the middle of the game, he offered draw please, because my friend spoke English, and you know, Lukács wasn't that comfortable with his English, or I don't know. I don't know why. He was really weird. I guess he speaks English well, but I've never really talked to him. It was just the weirdest thing. He didn't just say like offer draw. He was like, draw please. Yeah, Danny's humorous. I don't know him that well. I mean, we played, and I, you know, spoken to him on numerous occasions. Seems like a very, you know, interesting person. Good friend with Mark Hebden, and they used to be thick as thieves. Bishop takes d6. Queen takes d6. I don't think so, Bob. I'll take my English Danny any day. c5. Okay, we got space. We can play b6 if necessary. Please draw. Will I be at the Isle? No, I don't play chess at tournaments anymore. Not until next year. I've got a lot of stuff I have to do, but it looks like in 2020 I might get back to playing chess again. Knight on b5, queen d8, queen b3. This is kind of weird. You know, what is white really doing here with knight b5? It's kind of hope chess. And then there's no follow-up. Now, this is like maybe the question. You're attacking the knight on a6, but maybe you shouldn't attack the knight on a6. It's like, just get on with your development. I would lean toward castles here and say, okay, what are you doing? What is white doing? Yeah, it's like he lost his balance. It's almost like martial arts when you lose your balance and the opponent like puts that energy against him. So this is like reactionary. is what I'm trying to say. And I think that it's inflexible too. You probably will have to play it, but I don't want to commit to it until I have to. So I think you should just castle here. Get the king to safety. Give yourself, you know, possibly b6 or something. You're probably going to have to play it anyway, it looks like, but we'll see. So goes back, rook b8. This is all right. There's nothing wrong with this, but I just thought you might have more flexible options. Knight h4. Here you have the classical question now. Do we go back to g6? Do we play bishop e4, something experimental? Do we play c6 and take with the pawn and f5? All options on the table. You played bishop g4, another fourth option. Tricky, but you know, white's clearly going to play f3 or h3, and we have to calculate traps based on the knight on h4. I found some Manx money I had today from a previous trip a long time ago to the Isle of Man. Bishop h5, bishop e2. Why is white doing this? Very bad move. Just crazy to play bishop e2. I mean, it seems like the idea would be, I guess, g4, right? g4 and pull the trigger, and then you decide whether you want to play knight takes g6 or you want to go back here and try to play against the bishop on g6 or something crazy like that. But bishop e2 is ridiculous. Very, very silly move for white. Now you've got your knight on h4 for no reason. This just dumb. I mean, why do we put a knight on h4 if we're going to just trade the bishop and not even be able to capture on g6 now? So you now did a complicating move that to me doesn't make sense. Like, just bishop takes e2 and black is slightly better. Bishop e2, black slightly better, and this knight looks suspicious. Everything is okay for black. You maybe have e5 later. You might have b6 if you get in c6 first. You have potential breaks. Your king is very safe. Your position is sound. There are tactics against the knight on h4. This looks like unjustified, you know, a little bit like overly complicated. But let's see. So knight here, no checks. So what should white do? I mean, why doesn't white just take on h5? Queen h4, attacking f2. Now we take on e4. There's no knight d6 check. I mean, actually, this seems okay for black too. Maybe there's something weird like knight g3, trying to make two moves in a row. Queen h4, knight g3. This is also comfortable for black. Okay, so knight e4 isn't a big mistake, but I don't understand why we just don't play bishop takes e2. You ended up playing it anyway, and now you have this kind of suspicious pawn on e4. So I feel like the following position is kind of weird. Nevertheless, still black might be alright. I just don't like playing g5 and having my king in the center, particularly. Bad things happen when you play g5 in general without castling. Well, here white's king is also a little suspicious. b5. That makes this pawn, I think that makes this pawn stronger. Make your pawn strong again. Alright. Knight g2. Yeah, knight e4 really complicated the game. I mean, if that was your intention, I think it was a good choice. But b5, I don't like making the c5 pawn stronger. I want to keep that b6 option alive because this c5 pawn is very strong. And you might need to trade that off. You might need to attack that pawn. When you play b5, you lose your ability to play b6. And I think that you rob yourself of the option of counterattacking his pawn. So I would prefer to play something like here, try to maybe trade queens, or just use the d5 square. I don't think you're really getting that much there. Cool attempt by white, you know, to break through on the F file. That seems logical. You could play knight f6 instead. Maybe trade on different terms. This looks like it almost gives him like a tempo. Now there's just a clear crushing tactic. You know, that's how not castling in g5 causes problems. It's almost unbelievable to me that black is okay here. I'm looking at the evaluation based on previous analysis. If I were black here, I would think, man, I'm on the verge of losing. But at the end of the day, it's possible. I mean, you're allowing this pawn on d6. b4, you have b4 and rook b5. If you can pick off the c5 pawn, it might be okay for black. But let's just say you play b4, he plays this. Now he's attacking e6. What are we going to do? This pawn just looks too strong. I would be terrified I was lost here. Computer says it's okay for black. Wow. The best move being castles. Excuse me, not king f8, but castles. I still feel like white is easier to play. I don't like this pawn on d6. Very, very dangerous. Fanatic Chess, thanks for joining us. Thank you for hosting. Guys, we're going to be finishing up soon. We'll be back tomorrow, 5:30, with Blitz and Rapid Chess. Actually, just Blitz. We're doing Fast Blitz, 5+3 Blitz tomorrow. Thanks to everybody who subscribed, and thanks to all of those of you who donated. Dragon BC, great donation. Thank you, sir. Earlier, yesterday, Queen c4 attacking this. Now we have what? The actual game was d takes e6. It's a whole different game now. It's just, this pawn is weak. It's not strong. The protected pass pawn on d6 was extremely strong, but this is like likely to fall now. And if that falls, then black is likely better because he has a better structure. In the meantime, the rook is hanging, so I would, if I were white here, I would probably sack an exchange with rook d6. I would take my chances with this and playing this position. But objectively, it's probably not enough. You know, probably black just like challenges that rook too. And like queen d4. This is kind of a messed up position. I mean, if something like this happened, I'm like, maybe I'm lost now. Black's actually lost here. It could get really frightening. So why not rook d6? This is the line the computer likes, but it has a better move. Okay, what's the idea? Queen d4. So here you just calmly castle. And black doesn't have to trade rooks on d6. You just play this next move. Very calmly collect that weak pawn on e6. Do not panic. Gotta be careful, guys. Rook f5, it's over, I think. Well, alright. There's this. Rook d6 now. This is his hit. I think he's got to keep this chance alive to play rook d6. So e4. Last chance. What do we do? Do we do rook d8? Just trade? Trade rooks with rook d8 here? Objectively? Probably. Black is winning. Even though the material is even, the structure is much better for black, and the knight's a monster. The computer doesn't agree, though. There's counterplay for white. This line takes queen a5 check. You get some play. It may not be that easy. You can also castle. I can also castle. All right. Here. Anyways. I got one more game to go over. 2 more games to go over. Wow. Are we serious? Wow. All right. We got to end this one. I gotta do 2 more games. This is actual game. And in the end, the king is not safe. The white king is not safe. Amazing. You know, nice final position. Queen takes check, winning the rook. But it doesn't look like white has a good move here. It just sort of materialized out of thin air. So, good game. All right, quickly, guys, last 2 games. I got Arsenal fan and Pi Day. Just 5 minutes per game, guys. I got to go. Wondering if I'd be able to analyze my game with Camel from the tournament arena. This is not spectacular Camel, but Camel culture. You felt the game was imbalanced. Yeah, I mean, I saw this when you were playing, and I thought the opening was really good. So, it's a Sicilian Sveshnikov, or Lasker Pelican, some people call it. This is the main line. You know, Caruana was playing knight d5 against Carlsen in the World Championship. There's also queen a5 check here. Kind of an annoying line. But it's a draw if white wants. That's the problem with queen a5 check. Yeah, that's what Sebe Attila, my friend, agrees that c4 is the best move. I always played c3 here. There's a debate about those 2 moves. Anyway, some people think c4 is better, but they're 2 totally different structures, because now the d4 square is weak. I prefer c3, but that's just like, that's me. So all different moves here. Rook b8, a5. This looks interesting. I've never seen anyone do this, but it certainly looked reasonable over the board, Arsenal. Oh, so I see. So he blundered, you blundered, and he blundered. So the problem is queen a4 check. You can do queen a5. This has never been played before. Preventing queen a4. That's really weird. Then white would have an additional option of a3 though, right? Yeah, it's just, this is the point, like a3. So maybe Arsenal invented like a new pawn sack, but white still seems to be slightly better. Poindes, welcome. So this is like mutual blunders. Queen a4 check. Let's see. This is played by Lupulescu and Medved. So it's just like a much better version of like a gambit accepted for white here. Black doesn't have the kind of activity that you got in the game. When I saw it like here, I was like, oh wow, you know, Arsenal fan has a lot of compensation, you know. Amazingly, this has reached some sort of transposition to Neji versus Krivoruchko. Yeah, no doubt you have compensation for the pawn here. Actually, you're just winning the pawn, aren't you? So those guys actually played knight d5 and gave up the b2 pawn. And he played knight d3 instead, and at this point I was sure you had enough play when I saw the game. Definitely adequate compensation, and he just gives you the pawn. Trying to trade white square bishops, f5. That was a really cool move too. I like this. This was played very quickly by Arsenal fan. Intuitive move. And it seems like Camel's really good tactically, so he comes up with some cool solutions. He immediately found this. Not immediately, he actually thought. I watched this game very briefly. He's trying to break up the structure, but I don't know where to put the queen here. Can we play something like queen b7? Anyway, guys, I'm going to have to go through this very quickly because I have to go, and I still have Pi Day's game. So anyways, I like this. I thought it was inspirational. The engine thinks this was a mistake. And then we got a very complicated endgame. I mean, clearly the B pawn has to go. So you're actually doing great. And Warnaki's not the best. A5 is not the best move here. It's sort of helping the knight to go where it needs to go, I think. Now black is slightly worse. There's our active bad bishop theme of the day. Yeah, I can't play bishop d4 check, or can you? I was just trying to calculate this, but it walks into this, this, and this, apparently. So that line even goes on. You played the better move. And this is a draw. I guess black's even better arsenal. I assume that with his active pieces, the rooks and knight, you know, he would have enough activity to hold a draw. Being, you know, being down a pawn, but actually, all right, you're a pawn up. This is really active, though. I mean, both rooks down there, the knight on e7. I assume that black has enough, white has enough activity that he should hold. And you just traded down in the rooking game. This is definitely a draw. Now, your only chance to win seems like, objectively, to try to keep the bishop on the board versus the knight. But it's a very precarious ending. So, you know, you did a kind of safe thing. It's a draw. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It looks like we don't have time. But you blundered and, like, messed it up. This is tactical now. It's still a draw, but you have to be accurate. The most important thing is probably get your rook behind, active, like on a1, where you can harass his king side. You want to improve your king, and I also think that maybe, I don't know, you could try something like h5, g6, and move your king up. But I think getting your rook behind his pawn should be fundamental. This is a bad placement for the rook. You want to be over here. You wasted too much time. Get your rook behind his pawn as soon as possible. You were right pushing your pawns up on the king side, but I think you made some wasted moves of the rook. And by now it's like getting kind of late, and now you're lost. I think you're lost here. Though it's still not trivial, because these two pawns could be a technical draw, even if he has those two pawns clear. F4, I thought F3, but this is also okay. I mean, they're playing a lot of moves in this endgame. Now it's over, okay. But anyway, Arsenal, tough game, man. I mean, it was a slight inaccuracy in the opening. It worked out for you, and then you outplayed him. You're actually better. Winning was never like easy or clear for black, though. Like the best position you had, it looks like, was around here. Whereas they were saying f5 was a good move, but here, like queen b7, you're very active, and if he takes, you take with the pawn, I guess. Let's see what the engine says. I don't know what you're gonna do. Let's say you play, yeah, like knight e1. This is kind of a crazy situation. If you get that armada of pawns, I guess you're really clearly better, but not easy position. So good game. All right, last game, Pi Day. I've got to go, guys, in 5 minutes. Last game. I'm for real now. I'm late. Pi Day, we're just gonna go over this quickly. Who submits the games first guarantees, you know, analysis. I can't guarantee everybody will get their game analyzed. This is Pi Day playing Marco. A FIDE master, it looks like. Makai from Croatia. Alright, so Pi Day's white. What is the time control here? 30 plus 15. Classical King's Indian with Gligorich variation. I used to play this with white years ago, and I've certainly played it with black. I don't remember the theory too well now. The last game I lost was against Robert Markush with black about 10 years ago. That was a very unpleasant, I think it might have been this exact position. It was a very unpleasant game. I played a tournament in Novogorod, and it was the only game I lost. I played like 5 GMs. It was very disappointing to lose. Now h5. I think I don't remember what I played, if it was the same position or not. So this is all theory. This is not really a natural square. It's like the black side of the King's Indian attack. You want to put the knight on d7, not on e8. e8 is more passive. e1 is more passive. This is a little more fluid to go to d2. It's not a terrible move, but the knight's a bit more active and it doesn't obstruct the rooks. From e1's harder to play. Korchnoi likes that in the main line, but it's a little harder to play, and it's a different position. So let's see. He's just going straight up. This looks like a classical variation, like a Korchnoi variation, almost. But slightly differently placed pieces, like the knight on h6. He stops the queen side, and you've got to play like b4, a5. It's going to take forever. You've got a good placement. You know, you're slowing down h5, g4, all that. I don't play the Korchnoi line with white. I played many variations against the King's Indian, but knight e1 classical is one line that I never played. But it's very dangerous for both sides. Yeah, I mean, Korchnoi did this in like move 9 against classical King's Indian, famously against Kasparov, and Kasparov played a5 in the Mar del Plata variation. You can do it right away, but you know, the question is, ultimately, is black playing on the wrong side of the board? Is it worth it or not in the long run? I mean, if white can play a5 effectively, he may have weakened himself. So it's interesting idea. He sacks a pawn here, and then comes back. There's some sort of ideas of c5. It looks speculative, but interesting. It's always scary playing the King's Indian, you know, for both sides. I would think around here I would be getting hit by g3. There it is. I lost to Alex Scherzer like this a million years ago on the white side of a Grigorich variation. This is exactly the same kind of thing, where kingside attack came out of nowhere with like queen g5. Don't know where to put the bishop, but you can get wiped out really quick here with white if you're not careful. Yeah, this looks kind of scary. Came back to defend though. Maybe bishop f4 here for black. My inclination would be bishop f4. No. Plus 1.5. He doesn't find it though. h3. Oh my god. That's probably like the defining moment in the game. a6, a5. No, bishop f4, man. He missed it. And this is actually a different story now. You're holding f3. If he can't get in, he can't get in. And black is worse. And now c7 collapses. Or the back rank, which is even worse. Last desperate attempt. And that's ball game. Still there's a few threats. There it is. Wow, that's scary. Man, if knight g5, rook c7, he's just $1 too short. A day late and $1 too short. Now knight f3 is falling? Oh my god. Now e4 is falling. Wait a minute here. What? So if e4 falls, then f3 falls. This is crazy, dude. Well, apparently black's winning here with rook takes f2, knight f2, and then knight e4. He missed it. Man, I'm scared to play this kind of line with white. It's very frightening and difficult. At the end of the day, you're up a piece, but he still has threats. Crazy. Wow. Wow. Obviously, bishop g1, I mean, is the point. That's amazing. And he's just running out of stuff. What about knight f2 check, king g1? There's no knight h3. And that pawn's probably going to win. This is a typical crazy King's Indian. Still, it's like crazy. Threatening mate. You defend by one move. This was an insane game, but I'm sure there are like tons of mistakes by both sides. I mean, it's hard to play this kind of line in a rapid or blitz game without making mistakes. And now your king is free. So you win. No way to stop the d-pawn. Okay, crazy game with lots of mistakes, but it was fun. I mean, it was really nice defense, actually. It looked extremely frightening. And you found some inventive moves. But it looks like objectively, like bishop f4, I don't think you should get into that position. Like something there was bad. I mean, after g3, again, it looks like you're in serious trouble. So it's not easy to play the white side of those King's Indians. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back on Friday, tomorrow. Thanks, everyone, for supporting the stream. And from the Panda and myself, bye-bye. Have a great night. Hey, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Thanks, Mr. Coffee and Infinite Flash. I won't forget you, ever. Bye-bye.